hopefully we'll never have to go through that. Well, you got to hear the sirens. Oh, you get to hear them again. We're getting into property insurance. And just like car insurance, property insurance for schools operates exactly the way your home property insurance works. If you have fire, if you have damages of wind, things such as that, your property insurance is going to take care of it. You can't quite see this, but that's a flood. That's a flood. And once again, you learn by experience. I was a principal. I was a fledgling principal. Got a pretty good story about that. And we are at a faculty meeting, and there's a fire in the auto mechanics room. I'd only been on staff probably a month, and that's when I learned that I was an administrator, because I was not giving good direction as to what to do. Now, there were no students in the building, just faculty. And finally, someone looked at me and said, "What are we supposed to do? You are the administrator." And I go, "Yeah, I am." "Well, get outside." "And we're not going to get any of your books or whatever. Get outside. Get away from the building." The superintendent, on the other hand, he went into the fire. I pretty much decided at that particular point in time I would never do that. I had one other false alarm as superintendent. Smoke, I got a report of in one of the buildings, the building was right next door to the central office, that there was something burning. And so we evacuated the building. We got the fire department there. They walked the building, and here it was a transformer that had burned out, and it was in our exhaust system, and was kind of blowing the smoke. And then they, about 45 minutes later, left us back in the building. Once again, those fire people are in charge. You know, when they said it was safe for us to go back to the building, that's when it was safe for us to go back to the building. Once again, not in the days of Facebook, not in the days of those kinds of quick, easy access for people to know what's going on, because that creates another layer of issues you must deal with. Unfortunately, dealt with a flood, and within the flood situation, same kind of thing. You process the claim, and you get the damage, and you go from there. Just some of the coverages that schools would have that perhaps would not be in your own property. Dishonest employees. If the employee steals money, the property insurance is going to cover you for that. Sewage backup. Possibly you have something like this in your home care. Personal property contents, of course, that's all included. One of the things that I didn't do, that if I were superintending today, we would do, is I would have a visual of the schools, the content. When we had the flood, fortunately people could the flood, it didn't burn up, so therefore it's there soaked, and we were able to count the desks that were damaged, et cetera, and able to process the claim in that fashion. Some of the terms of property insurance: act of God. Probably can figure out what that means. Sometimes in this area, earthquakes are not covered. It's an act of God, but are not covered. Wind, definitely. Lightning, definitely. Tornadoes, definitely. Declaration page. Within your coverage, the page that tells you the specifics of your coverage is considered the declaration page. Replacement costs. How much does it cost to replace? On a personal note, I learned a lesson. And by the way, one of the things I talked about to my school business affairs people was many of the things that I learned as a superintendent have been helpful in my personal life. I'm on a golf trip and I go to check my car and my golf club's GPS stolen. My initial reaction is I have comprehensive coverage on the car. I will contact that carrier and report the missing items. And fortunately, my car and my home are both covered in the same insurance. And by the way, bundled coverages reduce price, personally as well as for schools. And the individual said, well, yeah, I'm glad you called us, but that's actually off your homeowner's coverage. Therefore, you need to process the claim through our homeowner's division. And that's what we did. Limits, there's always limits. We had a tornado this past summer. A tree come down and grazed the roof of our house. Fortunately, it just grazed the roof, but it put a hole in the roof. I got the right one this time. I contacted the property carrier and processed the claim. And they brought out an adjuster. He looked at the damage and gave us X number of dollars for the tree that was toppled, X number of dollars for the roof, and the replacement cost, since the roof had some age on it, we didn't get 100% replacement, but we got a fair amount of it replaced. So those are just some of the things that you deal with regarding property coverage. So, you're in a school and there's a flood. And hopefully you're not there. Hopefully you're not there. And school was out when we experienced the flood. So, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
We had a flood in one of our buildings, but it was due to water lines
Breaking.
and breaking and things like that.
And sometimes that right there will also be covered
And
with school in session.
yes,
It happened over the weekend.
yes, but the school had to be. We weren't able to go back to that school, so kids had to be transported to other buildings to finish weeks worth of the school year.
You know, the first thing you have to think about is when you have a flood is mold. And oftentimes with mud in the building, it has to be sanitized, and you have to use a certain type of cleaning detergent in order to get it cleaned up. So there will be no mold, and mold is another potential hazard. So yeah, you have to deal with that, and you might have to make arrangements to have your students housed someplace else for a short period of time. Fortunately, ours was in a basement. It happened on a bit of a break, and so therefore no one was around. And of course, in the meantime, with all the area flooded, buses couldn't get through, so we didn't have school for about 4 or 5 days anyway, which helped us collect ourselves. So what else has to be done?
Ours, our buildings and grounds had to do the inspections, and then they had to contact the correct people to take care of the problems.
Yes.
Plumbers or whoever else is needed to take care of mold issues and inspections and things like that.
And once again, you might rely on other individuals, and building and grounds people would be some individuals that would be you'd look toward and rely on, and maybe they've had some experiences with these types of things, either personally or within the school. And yes, you're going to have to take care of getting it dried out. You might have to bring in those big fans that blow air on floors in order to get them dried out. You might have to get a company to come in and do that cleaning for you. Of course, have a purchase order so that you can pay them and make sure that those things are taken care of. basically, at the end of the process, somebody's got to process the claim. Has to give the information, detail exactly what was lost in the calamity, and the insurance company will then provide reimbursement.